Three violent muggers cornered a freezing homeless man and his crying daughter in a Chicago alley, expecting an easy score. They didn't know the shivering man in dirty rags was a decorated, retired Tier 1 Navy SEAL. In exactly 42 seconds, those thieves would be begging for their lives. The wind howling off Lake Michigan didn't just bite, it chewed through layers of cheap denim and thermal cotton, sinking its icy teeth straight into the bone. It was late January in Chicago, a city that offered no mercy to those who fell through the cracks of society. Amos Pendleton sat on a frozen cardboard mat, his broad shoulders hunched forward to form a human shield against the wind. Tucked inside his oversized, frayed military surplus coat was the only thing in the universe that mattered to him, his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. She was asleep, her small face pressed against his chest, her shallow breaths warming his collarbone. Amos pulled his wool beanie lower over his scarred forehead, his pale blue eyes scanning the pedestrian traffic of the Gold Coast district with a practiced, mechanical precision. Nobody looked at them. To the wealthy elite, shuffling between high-end boutiques and idling luxury SUVs, Amos and Lily were invisible. They were an uncomfortable smudge on an otherwise pristine metropolitan canvas. Amos preferred the invisibility, but it came with a cost. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, a dull, hollow ache that he had learned to compartmentalize. Compartmentalization was a skill Amos had mastered over a 12-year career in the United States Navy, 8 of those spent operating in the shadows with DevGru SEAL Team 6. He had survived the suffocating dust storms of Helmand Province, high-stakes maritime boardings in the dead of night, and firefights that would give ordinary men night terrors for a lifetime. But none of that training had prepared him for the American healthcare system. When his wife, Sarah, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, the VA benefits hadn't covered the experimental treatments she desperately needed. Amos had drained his savings, sold his house, and taken out predatory loans to buy her an extra 8 months of life. When she finally passed away, holding his hand in a sterile hospice room, Amos was left with crippling debt, a grieving toddler, and a broken spirit. The bank took the car. The landlords demanded first and last month's rent he didn't have. Within a year, a man who had hunted high-value targets for the Pentagon was hunting for half-eaten sandwiches in the dumpsters behind bakeries. "Daddy?" Lily murmured, her voice muffled by the heavy coat. She shifted, her small hands clutching the worn fabric of his flannel shirt. "I'm cold." "I know, baby girl," Amos whispered, tightening his arms around her. His voice was a low, gravelly rumble, soothing and steady. "We'll get moving soon. The shelters open up their lottery at 5 o'clock. We're going to get a warm bed tonight, I promise." Amos's gaze drifted down the icy sidewalk, locking onto the revolving doors of a towering, glass-fronted corporate building, the Carmichael Enterprise Tower. Suddenly, a flurry of activity erupted at the curb. 2 men, in tailored black suits, with subtle earpieces, stepped out of the building, scanning the perimeter with aggressive vigilance. Amos recognized the posture immediately. Private security, likely ex-law enforcement or military washouts. A moment later, a woman strode out of the revolving doors. She was a striking figure, radiating an aura of absolute authority. Jacqueline Carmichael, the billionaire CEO of Carmichael Industries. She wore a tailored charcoal wool coat over a sharp designer suit, her dark hair pulled back into a severe, flawless twist. She was barking orders into a cell phone, her sharp features set in a mask of intense irritation, completely oblivious to the freezing world around her. As she moved briskly toward a waiting black Lincoln Navigator, the security detail flanking her, a sudden, violent gust of wind whipped down the street. It caught the edges of her unbuttoned coat, and in her hurried motion, a thick, leather-bound planner slipped from the crook of her arm. It hit the salted pavement with a soft thud and slid under the rear tire of an adjacent parked car, completely hidden from the view of her rushing entourage. Jacqueline didn't notice. The security detail didn't notice. The heavy door of the Navigator slammed shut, and the vehicle pulled seamlessly into the evening traffic, leaving behind nothing but exhaust fumes. Amos watched the SUV disappear. He gently nudged Lily. "Stay right here, sweetheart. Don't move." He stood up, his joints popping in the bitter cold, and walked over to the parked car. Kneeling, he reached under the tire and pulled out the planner. It was made of heavy, full-grain Italian leather. As he picked it up, a gold-plated clasp popped open, revealing the contents. It wasn't just a calendar. There were highly classified-looking corporate access cards, handwritten notes with financial figures that made Amos's eyes water, and tucked into a clear plastic sleeve, a photograph of a young boy, Jacqueline's son, smiling brightly. Amos snapped it shut. This was dangerous material. More importantly, returning it might yield a reward, enough for a motel room for a week,